Hey there, how's it going? If you know me, you know I like pushing myself with these 30-day challenges to see what I'm able to achieve and just try new things out. And for this one, that was kind of unintentional how I got involved with it, and I'll get into that a little bit later on how I was able to get into this and kind of how it came up. But I did originally want to do a 30-day challenge where I would run 1 mile a day to see kind of how fast I was able to do it, and that would be more time-based, where with this one, it was more distance based on how many miles I could run each day. So maybe in the future, I will do a mile every day to see my time and the progression and how it goes. But for this one was more distance based and didn't really pay too much attention to my time and how fast I was running. It was just more get these miles in. And how I got unintentionally involved with this is through my work, where we like to raise awareness for men's health during November for Movember. So basically what we ended up doing is a little bit different than what we've done in the past, where we split up internally into 2 different teams, and then there was 3 different categories. One who could raise the most money, one who could grow the best mustache. Clearly it was not me, you can't see my mustache. And then the third one is who can run the most miles or walk or cycle. And there's always this one guy that runs about 120 miles within that month, and he always gets brought up about how crazy he is or how much of a beast he is. So this month I decided to challenge myself because he was on the other team to try and push myself to see if I was able to beat him. And I took 120 miles, divided that out throughout the month, and that's about 4 miles per day, which is about 4 miles more than I'm used to. So it's quite significant jump than what I'm used to, although on the weekends I did run about 3 miles total. So it's not a complete jump where I wasn't doing any miles at all, but basically going Monday through Sunday every single week, 4 miles a day is a lot more than what my body's used to. So that would be a little bit of a challenge there. So if he does what he typically does, 120 miles every month, and then I do 4 miles every day, which is 120 miles at the end of the month, we should be approximately about the same. And then maybe at the end of the month, I'll put a couple extra miles in, and then I'll be able to beat him, but I'll get into that a little bit later. There are some details throughout the month that I found that kept me going and kept that motivation that I want to touch upon first. Because when I look back at it, it's quite significant jump from going from 0 miles every day to 4 miles plus every single day. So it's quite significant jump. And I boiled it down to about 4 different things that kept me going and kept my motivation up. And that came down to the competition factor, accountability, raising my standards or just adding a different goal. And then the 4th one is having that discipline to maintain that standard and keep up with it throughout the entire month and every single day. The first factor that I think helped push me so much was the competition factor. And if you played sports growing up, or even if you didn't play sports, I feel like we all have that competitive bone in us where we try to push ourselves more because we have that competitive edge in us where we want to be better than that other person, or it has that tangible asset to it where we have that benchmark where we know we have to beat, and it's something tangible that we can track and monitor, where we see where they're at and then we're able to adjust from there. And it's kind of similar with sports, where whoever has the most points in the league, and you're able to track yours so easily, where it's like, oh, I need a couple points here to try and catch up. So it's just easily trackable, and that competition kind of pushed me to try to keep up with him in the first place, and then try to maintain his pace and try and overtake his pace at the same time. So it's easily trackable, and I think that competition factor really helped push myself to try to strive and achieve more. The next one would be accountability, and I've said this in the past, to have a accountability partner. And even if you don't have an accountability partner, there are other ways that you can do it, where with me, I didn't have an accountability partner, but I found an indirect way to kind of manage this accountability, where if you follow me on Instagram, I posted on my story every day, basically my runs, and it just kind of kept me going. And it was like my motivation, my accountability to post on my story every single day. And even though I didn't tell anyone about it, or I didn't have anyone there to try and push me, it was just kind of mental, where I wanted to post on my story, because if I didn't post on it, then people might think that, they might not even think about it, but people might think that, oh, I'm not running today. So it was kind of an indirect way. So there's other ways to go around it. If you don't even have someone that will push you or have an accountability partner or do it with you, there are other ways to go around it. So have an accountability partner, or just finding an indirect way to hold yourself accountable, help push me at least through this challenge to try and maintain it, because there was one day where I ran a little bit longer. So when I was running, I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe people are gonna think that I didn't run today because I usually post at the exact same time every single day, whereas this time my run was a little bit longer, so my story got pushed back a little bit. So I was thinking on my run, maybe some people, or at least one person, will think that I didn't end up running today. So it was kind of psychological, where no one actually was holding me accountable. It was kind of myself and just trying to show up every single day and then show that I showed up every single day. The third one that I think had a big impact, and without this I probably wouldn't have been able to get anywhere near it, is raising my standards. And before, I was running 0 miles a day, so I had to raise it to 4 miles at least a day to get to 120 miles. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be anywhere close to it, and then it might lead to taking days off. So I wasn't okay with taking days off. It was every single day I had to run 4 miles at least, and it was just raising that standard there to only being acceptable of 4 miles minimum every single day. So that was kind of one of the things that I needed to do and I had to do in order to do it. So it's very simple, but the hard part comes in is having that discipline. And that brings me into the fourth one, which is having that discipline to maintain that standard being raised and going out there and performing that every single day. And the discipline is the hard part, because you got to make sure that you're going out there each day, each week, each month, and just performing. And whatever it may be, if it's running or starting a business or whatever it is, it's having that discipline to stay strict with it, going out and doing what you say you're going to do. And what I found really worked for me during this challenge and in the past is kind of having a ritual or a routine where you want to do that. So for me, it was waking up, stretching, and then once I stretch, I go and do my run. So there's nothing in the morning stopping me, and it's kind of stuff that you hear knock out the hardest thing first. So this was kind of one of the hardest things that I was doing that day. So knocking it out first, and there's no excuses, nothing that would come up, because it's early in the morning. There's no excuses. The only excuse that you could really come up with is, oh, it's cold outside, but throwing a couple extra layers, you're set. So creating that ritual or routine really worked for me in the past, and it really worked for me during this month, getting my miles in every single day. And I remember in the past when I was working out, I wouldn't really have that routine or ritual where I would go at a specific time every single day. It would just be whenever it was convenient for me. So that would sometimes lead to me pushing my workout off, and then it would get too late, other priorities would come up, and then I would say, oh, I can't go today, so maybe I'll just go tomorrow. And what that ended up happening, it might lead into the next day doing the exact same thing, and then you might just get into a bad habit of doing that. So when you create that ritual or routine, when you do that specific activity, it just becomes automatic, and then there's no excuses in the way of doing that specific activity or whatever it may be. So if I didn't really create this routine or ritual in the morning of running, it may have been like in the past where I would put it off, and then later in the day I might just be like, oh, I'm too tired, or other priorities came up, so I'm not going to do it, I'll just do it tomorrow. And that may have led to me missing a lot of days, whereas when I had this routine or ritual, I didn't end up missing any days. So just creating that routine or ritual for me personally has been huge to be able to keep that discipline and maintain that discipline. And going into one of the main pieces of equipment that kind of made me get through this month not as painfully, kind of underrated, these running socks. And after my first day, I ran. So after the first or second day that I ran, I posted on my story, and my cousin ended up reaching out to me, and I ended up saying I had really bad blisters, and it was only my first day, I think. And he's like, you should get running socks. And I never knew they even existed until he said that. I just thought there was only one kind of sock, and then he told me about that and opened up a whole new world to me. So those running socks really helped me out. They stopped the blisters from forming, and when I would run, I didn't even feel the blisters anymore. So they were huge in that aspect. So if you are planning on running a lot and you haven't heard of running socks, I highly recommend them, because they truly helped me get through this as little pain as possible. And talking about pain, I'll get to that in a second, but I'm sure you're wondering if I ended up beating that guy in the mileage, and I'll get to that now. Unfortunately, we were neck and neck all the way through, and then it was probably around the last weekish. I think we were both at around 90 miles. We were neck and neck the whole way. And then I looked a couple days later, and all of a sudden he had like 10 miles on me. So what I decided to do to try and catch up to him was run 10 miles in one day, and that's where the pain came in. And if it wasn't so close to the end of the month, I may have taken days off, but the dumb thing, not smart thing to do was go back out there and keep running, which I did. And it was honestly only one really bad day of running. The next day, my knee was absolutely killing me, and I barely made it through. I ran a lot slower than what I was running in the typical pace that I was running, so that was about the only pain that I did have. And if it wasn't like 3 or 4 days left in the month, I probably may have taken the day off or something like that. But since it was so close to the end, I was just like, I'm just going to power through and get it. And I tried to catch up to him. I had another couple days where I logged a couple miles at night, just additionally, just to try and catch up to him. And unfortunately, he finished with around 150 miles. I finished with 135 miles, which is more than what my goal was set for. My standards were raised. So I'm still really impressed with how many miles I was able to get. That's about 120 miles more than I'm used to running in a month. And I feel like I've never ran that much in a month, let alone probably a year. So really happy with that. Unfortunately, I didn't end up nudging him out. He did take away within like the last week, so he kind of snuck up on me and just kind of took off without me noticing. So other than losing, getting really hurt after the first day with blisters, and after that 10-mile run, just getting extremely sore from that, it was a really good month, and I'm happy I pushed myself. Do I see myself doing this in the future? Probably not, even though I know cardio is really good for you. But I will probably stay with running around 3-ish miles a week because it's not too much and it doesn't really hurt to do that. So I'll probably just stick with that. Running 4 miles every day is a lot, and my knees are hurting. I'm happy they got through it on the month for me. So other than that, I'm really happy with how the month went. As with anything that you do, if you want to achieve more, I feel like these are a few key factors to help you strive for and achieve more in your life. Find a way to create competition or gamify it. Get an accountability partner or just find accountability. Raise your standards and create discipline. With these few key factors, I feel like you'll be able to achieve more and strive for more in your life. As always, thanks for watching, and let's level up. I ran. So I ran. I can't even say that word now. So when I went outside, so after I ran,